I'm curious from your experience. You started 21.
Mm-hmm.
You're with Chick-Fil-A 37 years.
Yep.
Certainly the organization changed and transformed many times over. What was the biggest transformation for David?
Well, I'm going to copy what one of my mentors and leaders said on that answer. I'm going to shamelessly steal his answer. Somebody asked Jimmy Collins, who was the president of Chick-fil-A. He retired in 2001, I believe it was, something like that. He said, "What changed most about Chick-fil-A, during your time?" Because he saw the organization grow to $1 billion, and he started working when they had like one restaurant with Truett. Saw it grow to $1 billion. And they asked him, "What changed most at Chick-fil-A?" You know what his answer was? Me. And that's, I think, was part of the key to the whole thing is Truett tried to hire people who could grow with the business. Because if he wanted to have a growing business, he used to say it this way: businesses don't succeed or fail. People do. So if you want to have a successful business, you got to hire a successful business, and then you've got to grow and develop them. I love to think that a lot of businesses use the people to grow the business, but very few people see the business as an opportunity to grow the people.
And
that's a huge difference, because if you see the business as an opportunity to grow the people, your business will grow as a result.
As a byproduct, yes.
As a byproduct. Yeah. But a lot of times they see the object of the business to grow it instead of growth as the byproduct. And so I think even now about all the businesses as an opportunity to help people grow into all they can be. And that's what the platform business is all about for me. And if you'll grow people, like during COVID, the 3 months we were shut down, not only did we put everybody on project teams, you know what else we did? Intense training. Because they're available now. Yeah. Normally they're not very available. So we did a lot of training during that time because we knew if we grew our people, they would grow our business.
You're putting seeds in the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so I think viewing your business as a platform to grow people versus the people as a platform to grow your business is a huge change maker and differentiator.
Well, it's a significant mindset for a leader to understand we have a responsibility to invest in our people. And it's one of the best things we can do. I mean, we're going to have a lot of customers. We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to learn a lot of things. But at the end of your career as a leader, what you're really going to remember and still have at the end are these relationships that you've invested in these people, you've built them, and then they have blossomed, and then the people that they lead have blossomed, and you get to see the fruit in the form of lives changed and not just that many more customers. And, I know Truett had this mindset also about growth, not just growing people, but a lot of business owners talk about how do we grow? How do we grow? How do we grow? How do we get bigger? Truett had a different take on this.
Yeah, let's dig into that. This is one of my favorite stories. If you ask me for the top 3 or 4 stories that marked my life at Chick-fil-A, this was one of them. So in the early 90s, there was a company called Boston Chicken that had 13 locations up in the Northeast. And then suddenly they attracted a lot of venture capital, and the venture capital turned into, loans. And then they did an IPO, and almost overnight, over like 2 years, they went from 13 locations in the Northeast to as big as Chick-fil-A in what seemed like overnight. And a lot of people at Chick-fil-A were getting nervous because not only was Boston, it changed its name from Boston Chicken to Boston Market.
Oh, I remember Boston Market, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the same company. They just changed their name when they did the IPO and along the way. And not only were they on the cover of every restaurant magazine, they were on the cover of every business magazine. I mean, they were on the cover of Forbes and Fortune and all the rest. And they seem like they are the next big thing. And here we are, little Chick-fil-A, and now we have a genuine competitor, good high-quality chicken in the fast food market, and we're going head-to-head with them. And there was a lot of nervousness at Chick-fil-A. So because of that, they had declared they were going to be $1 billion business by the year 2000. This would have been in 92, 93, sometime in the early 90s. So Dan Cathy went to New York on an exploration to see what could we do to grow bigger, faster. And so we looked at all kinds of things. We looked at venture capital, big loans, IPOs, all that kind of stuff. And Dan came back to report back to the executive committee. And there was a group of people sitting around the table. And Dan he is fired up. You could see the fire in his eyes, and he is selling it, and he's excited. And we got all these opportunities because we were pretty much almost debt-free at the time. The whole time he's reporting back on his trip to New York, I was sitting down near Truett. And Truett would have been sitting right over here. And I could tell Truett was not excited about what Dan was all excited about. So at one point in the conversation, very uncharacteristic for Truett, he kind of banged his fist on the table and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am sick and tired of hearing you talk about getting bigger." He said, "We need to get better because if we'll get better, customers will demand we get bigger." So as you might imagine,
mic
the entire
drop.
conversation, mic drop, bingo, mic drop, everything changed at that point. And the whole conversation went from getting bigger to getting better. So let me tell you the rest of the story, as they say. So Boston Market continued to get bigger, and they had so much, they were just flush with cash. But in the year 2000, when Boston Market was going to be $1 billion business, guess what was happening at Boston Market? Bankruptcy. In the year 2000, guess what happened at Chick-Fil-A? $1 billion for the first time.
Wow.
We accomplished the very objective that they were talking about. But there's so many lessons we could unpack out of this, Daniel, but let me just unpack a couple of them that really stood out in my mind. What happened was, because they had so much money and because their focus was on getting bigger, they would go to a market, let's call it Dallas. And they'd say, "Okay, we're going to open 60 locations in the next 2 years and then declare victory." So they'd go out there and they had the money to do it. So they would quickly run out. If you know anything about the real estate business, if you got to find 60 A-plus locations in 2 years, you will quickly run out of A-plus locations. And then you move to B and C and D.
So compromise.
And so they compromised, but they got their 60 open. And then they got to staff all 60 locations. And maybe they start with a few A-plus players, but they quickly move to B, C, and D and warm bodies. So now you've got B, C, and D locations being run by B, C, and D people. And yes, you got your 60 open, but play it out a little further, and it implodes on itself. So here's the other thing I learned. I was taught in business school, literally the definition I was given, the purpose of a business is to maximize shareholder value or to maximize profitability. Literally, that was how it was defined for me. But I realized through this chapter that ultimately shareholders don't fund your business. Customers do. Because I don't care how much money shareholders throw to business. If customers don't throw more money at that business, you will be out of business.
That's right.
And so much of, particularly now that I'm working a little bit more in the publicly traded business sector, so many of them focus on shareholders and they feel like that's who they got to make happy. But the best way to make the shareholders happy is to make the team members happy, make the customers happy, make the suppliers happy, make the communities happy. I guarantee you, if your customers are happy, your employees are happy, communities you're serving are happy, and your suppliers are happy, guarantee you shareholders are going to be happy.